What is going on, Jerome's? Mike Evans may be the most underrated wide receiver in NFL history. He has broken his own record multiple times, being the only wide receiver in National Football League history to start his career with nueve straight 1,000-yard seasons. Probably going to make it 10 this year, but there seems to be an issue down in West Florida. So Adam Schefter, ESPN, go. More about Mike Evans setting a Week 1 deadline to receive a new contract from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with his representation indicating the wide receiver will look to play elsewhere in 2024 if no deal is reached. So, of course, the Buccaneers probably in tank mode. They're having a running battle with the Cardinals for the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, but it would make sense if they were looking to trade Mike Evans, who is headed into the final year of his 5-year, $82.5 million extension that he signed back in the day. He's due a $13 million base salary this year and is going to be a free agent. So it would make sense for the Buccaneers, if they are in full tank mode, to potentially part ways with the 4-time Pro Bowler and 1-time second-team All-Pro. Again, it really sucks that Mike Evans has only been a second-team All-Pro once. That's ridiculous. I mean, the guy's been fantastic for a number of years, but he is playing in a golden age of wide receivers. But, of course, since we can't help ourselves, every single time a player becomes available, the Vikings should trade for X. The Vikings should assign player X. The Vikings should draft player XYZ, all that stuff. But does it make sense? Would it make sense for the Vikings right now? Would it make sense with what Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah are building? Probably not. And also, no disrespect to KJ Osborne, because he's my guy forever, but a 3-deep Mike Evans at the X, Justin Jefferson doing Justin Jefferson things, and Jordan Addison for the next couple of years. Ooh, woo, spicy. That is a spicy meatball, man. But Mike Evans was the number 7 overall pick in 2014 from back in the day. And by the way, all this talk about blah, blah, blah Manziel, blah, blah, blah Johnny Football. Mike Evans made Johnny Football, because you look at all the highlights, especially that game in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. Johnny Football scrambling around Fran Tarkenton style, then just putting up an arm punt, and then, the 6'5" guy from Galveston, he comes down with the football. Crazy how he doesn't get any credit. But whatever there. But, Mike Evans, like we said, 9 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and he's been a model of consistency. He's outside the numbers guy, big body, go up and get it, and he's been fantastic throughout his career. But, again, we're trying to see things from both angles, because any issue like this, it becomes very polarizing. It becomes a civil war. It's like, yes, the Vikings should be all in. No, the Vikings should not touch him with a 10-foot pole, all that stuff. But we want to be relatively objective and go through some pros and cons. So the pros and cons of Mike Evans, number 1, he's Mike Evans, right? And even though he just turned 30 on August 21st, happy belated birthday, he's still one of the better outside the numbers receivers, and he's still got a lot of good football left in him going forward. And also, the thing about it too is, receivers like Mike Evans, if you look at guys like Julio Jones, guys in the big-bodied receiver mold, where they're not so reliant on that quickness to get separation like some of the smaller receivers, where speed is the first thing to go once you get older, but they're still able to body, they're still able to box out, they're still able to play grass basketball, and they can do that longer than smaller receivers can get separation with their quickness. Number 2, you don't have to face him week 1. Trade for Mike Evans this week and just be like, hey, just come up to Minneapolis early and you'll play against your old team. And if you got an axe to grind, just go bury it, man. Go ahead. Pro number 3, Kirk needs a tall receiver. And the whole thing about N'Keal Harry, him at 6'4", 225, added into the practice squads, that really is a dimension that the Vikings don't currently have. Like, Jefferson is 6'1", 6'2", but in terms of having a guy at the X, in terms of a guy who's just going to go up and get it, don't really have that on the roster. Now, yes, you got Hockenson and you got Josh Oliver, but you don't have that outside guy. And also 3-deep 2.0, even though I feel like we went 3-deep 2.0 last year with Jefferson, KJ, and Thielen, and this year's pretty damn good too with Jefferson, Addison, and KJ, but again, Evans, Jefferson, and Addison, let's go. Let's go, man. Cons. All right. So wrong side of 30. Yes, even though he did just turn 30, it is on the wrong side of 30. And do you expect Mike Evans to get better or worse at this stage of his career? You're probably betting on the latter. Even though, yeah, he probably has a couple of 1,000-yard seasons left in him. I mean, his last 3 1,000-yard seasons were barely 1,000-yard seasons, if that's a thing, or something like that. Anyway, next up, con number 2, lack of separation. So, yes, it never really has been his bag, but that's something that the Kevin O'Connell offense is predicated on. That's something where, Adam Thielen, when he lost a step last year, sort of got lost in the mix. Now, yes, I'm sure Kevin O'Connell would adjust his offense for Mike Evans specifically, but, getting away from that DB, need to see it, man. Next up, number 3. Needs a new contract. So, like we said, Mike Evans is in the final year of his deal. He's probably looking for, well, first off, he's the second highest paid receiver on his team. Chris Godwin's making $20 million a year. So if I'm Mike Evans, I got a little bit of an issue with that. But, Evans probably looking for, not JJ money, but probably $22-23 million per year. So would the Vikings be willing to part with that as of right now? I mean, that hasn't really been Kwesi's MO, giving out long-term deals to older players. In fact, he showed a bunch of older players the door who were on bad contracts from the Spielman era, whether that be, Kendricks or Thielen. So it doesn't really mesh with what Kwesi wants to do with his team. Then lastly, draft capital. So there's probably going to be a bidding war for Mike Evans. Giants are probably going to be in, potentially the Broncos, other teams with wide receiver needs. And it could get to the point where a team gives up a first-round pick right meow for Mike Evans, which I ain't going to do that, especially with the Vikings potentially in on a quarterback of the future next year, and giving up a 1, ain't even giving up a 2. Just can't do it. Can't win with it. Also, the Vikings don't have a 3 next year, so yeah, you can't really do that. Even though, again, this would be a ton of fun, and this would be a ton of fun. I just don't see it in the cards right now for the Vikings. Doesn't make too much sense, and it doesn't really fit with what Kwesi wants to do with this team. So, again, would be fun, but probably not. Probably not. But your thoughts are thoughts. Mike Evans, ? Pros and cons. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.